Alright, boys. I want to cover a opportunity that I discovered. Okay, so let me start out by saying that for years I've been kind of keeping my eyes open for opportunities to make more money as like side hustles. That can be according to my own time, um, do it my own way, and not have like a 9 to 5 job, but just kind of incorporate it into my existing lifestyle as a neat kind of not employed or in education or training. No, I mean I'm self-employed, but still I kind of cross over to neathood. Some people think. Anyways, um, so I kept my mind open and my eyes open for opportunities. And so far, I've been doing like vehicle flipping and stuff like that to try to make extra money in addition to online businesses. I'm always looking for the next product or way to make some extra income. And things, are hit and miss, and I have my challenges, but I've been doing okay. But kind of on the low end of the earning spectrum, where my wife's kind of complaining, especially now that she makes big money with her college degree and her professional career. Um, Now there's a lot of comparing going on, so the heat has turned up for me to make more since our income disparity is so severe. That really became an issue. It was never an issue when she was just working as a secretary for 10, 15, $20 an hour, but now that she's making professional level income, now suddenly I'm the bad guy because I don't make that much, which is frustrating. So, anyways, I've been extra looking for opportunities, and one opportunity that I've looked at over the years was real estate investing. But although I'd read a lot about it, I'd research it a ton, I always came to the conclusion it just was too complicated and or too expensive to get involved. I just didn't have the money to start, and also being kind of a student and kind of a mentee with mentor relationship of Dave Ramsey's debt-free type of style, as opposed to the Robert Kiyosaki leveraging debt to make wealth. Um, I prefer Dave Ramsey's approach more as far as my own personal preference. Um, and Dave Ramsey would not really support getting into real estate by taking out a big loan. Now there is a thing called house hacking or whatever, where you like buy your first home, move into it, and rent out half of it, and then eventually get a home equity line of credit to get a new home, and you leave that first home as a rental home. There are creative things you can do if you're willing to move, but I prefer to live in my dad's basement, so that was kind of out for me. I couldn't really do that without pretending I moved and using a fake forwarding address and stuff, but I didn't feel comfortable with like faking that this is a house I'm going to be living in when it's really not. I just didn't want to do that, so I didn't feel comfortable doing that approach. Plus, the whole point of that was to be able to get a loan to be able to do it. And now you got a mortgage to worry about, and you got to make sure you're filling the tenancy, and you got to have large reserve money in case if there's a lot of vacancies, and you have a lot of overhead. And if you lost your job, how do you handle the mortgage? It's just like a lot of loose ends and a lot of risk. And I just didn't like that approach. It wouldn't be comfortable for me. Now, for other people, it's great, but I'm just saying for me, I didn't like it. So basically, I then thought, well, what if I asked my dad for the money and then I paid him back eventually? And I just got a home which I could rent or flip and then pay my dad back and keep the profit. But then flipping is like this super high paced thing, and you've got possibly a lot of overhead with mortgages and stuff you're paying, utilities you're paying while you're trying to quickly rehab it. I'm not that quick. So I didn't really like that either. And flipping is like a one time payoff for your efforts, but it doesn't have that long term passive type income that being somebody that does rentals brings. So I prefer the rentals thing. It seems like a nice cash flow for the long term. I'd rather have a little bit of money per month over long term that's fairly passive than a ton of money right now that I'll just stick in the stock market, but it really won't compare to the long term cash return of rentals. So I think rentals is a better fit. than flipping. Flipping requires, in my opinion, a big team, fast pace, go, 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 and they're always, trying to speed through things and then do the next one. They try to do 2, 3, 4, 5 flips a year, and sometimes the profit margins can be tight, and it's all about speed and getting cheap contractors and relationships with contractors. It's a very intense, high risk, high reward kind of gambly thing, and just too stressful. And I don't know a bunch of contractors like that. I prefer to do everything DIY and not have all that overhead of needing to work with all these other people. So what I ended up landing on was I prefer just to buy a house as cheaply as possible, cash, and then fix it up as needed to get it ready to rent, and then rent it out. And I did a ton of research online, and I discovered that the best way to do that is to buy something in a economically challenged area, or like a nearby ghetto, we could say. So that's the route I decided to go with, to locate a property in a nearby ghetto, purchase that property, which now that's at a price point I can afford cash, with my meager life savings, just by pulling some money out of the stock market that I've been gradually over the years adding to little by little. I can actually buy a house cash. And so I was looking at Zillow and Realtor.com and stuff like that, and I actually found there's a lot of houses in the $10,000 or less category. Well, not a lot, but there's some in the nearby ghettos. So that's where I decided to go. Also, another note, there's been like a big concern a lot of people have about the safety of being in the ghetto, but I was already planning to do ministry in the ghetto anyways. Every time I go out to preach the gospel, whether it's through literal preaching or through just acts of service, just going to help poor people in general, like offer my services, just labors of love to strangers, whatever type of evangelistic type of thing, spreading the light of God to people, I like to do. I'm always taking my life into my own hands, trusting God to protect me when I go into poor areas or whatever. And most evangelists have a certain boldness when it comes to that. Like Paul got stoned while evangelizing in a city. He got dragged out of the city, assumed dead. And then he got up. I think maybe the disciples healed him supernaturally. They might have even brought him back to the dead. He got up, he walked back into the city, and he started preaching again. You could say that's putting God to the test or whatever, but clearly it's not. It was never called a sin. He was led by the Holy Spirit to do that. So when it comes to preaching the gospel, contending for the faith, spreading the light of God, there is a lot of leeway to, quote unquote, putting God to the test, being reckless with your life and your safety. There's a lot of leeway there. Basically, if you're there to serve God, you can take a lot higher risk with your life. Now, there are cases where a missionary might get killed in action, but he'll get the martyr's crown, or if he really wasn't led by God, this was ego-driven or something, then he might still not be getting the martyr's crown. He might just be going where everybody else that's a rebel, that's not truly a follower of God, is going, which isn't a punishment. So anyways, because I have that mindset for evangelism, and I was planning to go to this ghetto anyways to try to help the poor, to serve, as a way to serve God and as a way to bring light to them and hope to them and love to them, which is what the Bible commands. That same comfort and trust in God to protect me has inadvertently overlapped into a more business pursuit in the same poor area. And I think that the business pursuit can be intertwined with ministry, since everywhere you go, whether you're working or just volunteering, you should be using it as an opportunity to spread the light of God, to demonstrate your faith. So everything you do should be a ministry in one way or another. But as far as like formal ministry that's non-paid, that's directly serving God with nothing in return at all. It's not quite that, although I'd like to do that as well. But this will at least have a partial ministry element in that I can be a very kind landlord instead of provide a very nice property at an affordable price, be very fair. You can show love in many ways when it involves being a landlord. So that all having been said, I found a property at a local ghetto that was very, very run down. My friend called it an F property, where it's like, quote unquote, bad area, bad condition, falling apart, rotting, whatever. I bought it for $6,000, which I had the cash available to do that. And I anticipated from $3,000 to $4,000 in renovations. I anticipated that could be my cost to renovate it completely. Now, people think that that's a crazy low number, but I think it's possible. And I think that what people don't factor in is that I want to get almost everything for the property for free using Craigslist free section and Facebook Marketplace free listings. Those types of locations have like curb alerts where they say like, there's a dresser at this address, first come first serve, it's out for trash pickup, and you could like swing by there and pick up the dresser. So you can get anything this way. Like, there's so much stuff you can get, and so like when I say 3,000 or 4,000 to rehab it, this is how you have to think about it. It's not I find a contractor who's going to basically halfway rebuild the entire thing, and he's going to charge me 3,000 or 4,000 for labor and material. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the material cost alone will be 3,000 to 4,000, but that only makes up around 20 to 30% of the total material cost, where 70 to 80% of the additional materials is going to be obtained for free through Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. So that 3,000 to 4,000 is just the paid portion of the material cost. The additional $7,000 to $10,000 of materials will be obtained, used for free through dumpster diving, essentially, or online Facebook and Craigslist free listings, or very, very cheap, like $5 for a ton of lumber or something, where people are just, they put a tiny number, but it's basically free. So that's how I plan to do it. So basically then, the materials are 3,000 to 4,000 plus the free materials being an additional 7,000 to 10,000 for total material cost of 14,000. That's just materials, and then the labor would be $30,000 to $40,000 worth of labor that I'm contributing solo without any help for free over a 3-year period or a 2-year period of labor. Probably 3 years for me. I'm just so slow. So 3 years for me to totally renovate the property, get it ready for rent. Let's just say $40,000 labor, $20,000 materials, only $4,000 of coming out of pocket. So the total out of pocket cash is $10,000, $9,000 or $10,000. But the free labor and free materials is massive, which collectively is why the renovation is so expensive while being so cheap, because it's free labor and free materials involved. And technically, you could even build a mansion if given enough time and effort. Using free labor and free materials, you could build an entire mansion. I mean, if you took an axe into the woods and you chopped down trees and you cut into rock and mountains, you mined for ore, you smelted it, you made your own copper and your own piping, you dug for oil and you created plastic to make PVC piping, you could technically make anything for free. But how far of that is realistic, though? So, like, I'm just saying, like, if you think about it, you can get the cost way down if you're willing to go to certain lengths. That's an exaggerated view, but driving out to pick up free stuff by a curb is not so exaggerated. You could do that over time if throughout the year you're constantly finding deals and you're driving out to pick it up. I've already done that multiple times. I've gotten a lot of free stuff to start out. Um, and it's working. I'm getting all the free stuff I want. I already got a ladder for free. We're talking a huge extension ladder. I got that for free. I got a ton of wood for free from a decking project that was from a deck that was torn down. I got a ton of wood from my mom's barn, which she had saved from past projects where it was extra left over. She just stored it in her barn. And then I got a ton of wood from another decking project. So I've been getting a ton of free stuff to do this. So though I only spent $6,000 for the property, when I'm totally done renovating it, it will be worth, let's say, like $150,000 equity. So I'd be able to sell it for that if I wanted to and not even rent it. But I'd rather just keep it and rent it. Now the rent for that part, my intention is to rent by the room instead of renting the whole property. If you rent the whole property, it's $900 to $1,100 usually, like for a single property rental in the ghetto. But if you rent by the room, I'm thinking I could charge up to between $550 to $650 rent per room, and you can do up to 4 rooms per property. So if you can convert the 3-bedroom, one bathroom into a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, if you could add some bathrooms and add some more rooms creatively, like turn a porch into a room, or turn a garage into a room, or turn a basement into a room, you can work that out and then add some small bathrooms. Then you could get enough bathrooms and enough rooms going in what would otherwise have been a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. You can be creative, modify a little bit to make it be a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, so everyone's pretty happy with the amount of bathrooms and the amount of bedrooms, and rent out by the room. And you can make each room, here's the other thing that I'm totally innovating. Each room, I'm planning to have be just like a hotel room. It's going to have a nice bed, blankets already ready and made, all new. It's going to have a TV. It's going to have a computer, a desk. It's going to have a mini kitchenette, so it'll have like a microwave, a little toaster oven, a toaster, coffee maker. Literally just picture a nice hotel. It will look like a nice hotel. And so when I send pictures to rent out by the room, it will be pictures of what amounts to like a nice hotel. And it will also have like a little sink with the kitchenette, so you can like do some basic dishes, wash your hands, if you don't want to use the common kitchen of the whole house. If you're kind of a loner or you just want to stay to yourself, you'd be able to prepare meals in your room and do everything in your room. You'd have to share a bathroom though, but because I'm going to have like 3 bathrooms for 4 total tenants, like it won't be too bad, like long waits and stuff. So that's how I'm going to do that. And I believe that by having it be like fully furnished and really nice looking, like a nice hotel for the rooms, that I'll be able to get more like $650 instead of $500 or $550, which is kind of more normal rent by the room, what you get for like just basic unfurnished whatever. I think that if you have like it be like a hotel room where you just bring your clothes, it's ready to go, I think that justifies the extra $100 a month. So let's just say that works, that plan works, I make it nice enough that people actually buy it. Because it is cheaper than them renting out a whole house, which would be like $1,100, $900. They're dropping it down to $650. And I think they'll actually buy it if it's nice enough. So imagine $650 for 4 rooms for this house, which would otherwise, remember, only bring $900 to $1,100 for the whole house if we rented it to one person. Now you're renting to 4 people, but $650 each. That's 6 times 4 is $2,400, and then the 50, 50, 50, 50, $2,600 a month. Now that's huge. Now remember, I bought the house cash, rehabbed it cash. I'm in 0 debt, and now I have $2,400 a month passive income. Not really passive. I mean, I'm going to be my own property manager, but $2,400 a month is like 24,000. Add 2 more. It's almost $30,000 a year of semi-passive income. And I'm treating it kind of like a hotel, but because like a hotel, like you rent everything, you just bring your suitcase. You don't like you don't consider it like your property. Like you rent a room, you're there for a weekend. Mine's like month by month rent, so it's like a longer term hotel, but it's going to look like a hotel. And another cool upside of this is in the ghetto. My concern is like when you rent somebody a whole house, they're kind of like, this is my house now. And so, yeah, you can, like in the leasing agreement, you can like go there if you give like 3 day notice to do inspections, but it's kind of frowned upon. It's kind of like, give us our privacy. We don't want you around here. We'll send you the check. Leave us alone. And then they can kind of over the years trash your place because you don't really have that much hands on. You're kind of aloof. You're kind of away. You're distant. But with this setup, with it feeling kind of more like a hotel situation, I'd be able to go there all the time to clean. I could be my own cleaning service. So I clean all the common areas. I clean the kitchen, the bathrooms. I would be able to like really stay on top of making it look mint condition. I would be the cleaning service. Now I was told by family members and stuff, don't try to clean their rooms though. So I'll treat it as a hotel minus. So like you know how a hotel you can say do not disturb, we're sleeping, and you can put that sign on your door. I'm going to envision I'm a cleaning service for a hotel, but that sign is on every door. So that's the rule. I never go in and actually clean anybody's room. That's like their sacred private spot. But as far as the common areas, at least I can keep that really mint. And I'll just hope that if they have really nice common areas, my hope would be that they keep their room similar nice. I'd be setting the standard of the property by keeping the landscaping mint, the bathrooms mint, all the common areas mint. And if they come out, I'd be able to peek into the rooms. I mean, if I'm like in the house all the time, I would get some idea pretty easily if somebody's sneaking a dog in there or if somebody is like totally trashing the room. If I'm around, the likelihood of me seeing into a room would be much higher for me to know what's going on, even if I don't ever like even ask to enter the room. It's just likely I would happen to see through a door that's left partially open or something like that. I'm going to really know what's going on to an extensive degree, which will make me able to better manage the property and better work toward evicting people who really aren't a good fit, who are just basically causing a lot of damage and destruction and ruining the property. And that way I can keep things nicer longer. And imagine if I did this for like 2 or 3 properties rented by the room. Like if I did that a few times with just 3 property deals, which each could be like $6,000 to $10,000 purchases, and then I make it, nice again because it's going to be total trash at that price. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's like 3 years of like almost a full-time job to do this solo. So basically, I see it as like rebuilding the house. Now, it's not like you demolish a house and you start from scratch, though. To rebuild a heavily trash house that's like rotting and falling apart and moldy, or that's been in fire damage, I see it as this. Imagine if you drove up on a construction site and you saw a bunch of workers building a new home, and they were 60% of the way through building it. They had the framing on, the Tyvek. It was a nice start. And you say, hey guys, I want to buy this right how you have it. I want to finish building it. I just want to pay you $6,000 to $10,000. You guys just leave and it's mine. And they're like, oh, okay. I mean, that sounds like a rip-off. Our materials are worth way more than that. But I guess, like for whatever reason, they're so desperate they take the cash. They would never do that, right? Because even the lumber's worth way more than that. The piping's worth more than that. The land itself is worth more than that. So the fact that I'm able to get this whole purchase for 10 grand, even if it is super dilapidated, like the materials and the land alone are worth more than that. So the fact that they're so desperate to sell it because it's just abandoned for so many years, nobody wants to deal with it, it's overwhelming. You get it at just such a steal if you think about it. And yeah, it might take you a few years to solo build it back up to being nice again, but that's totally worth it. You could be so creative, and the creativity of how to fix everything has been really fun for me. For example, I was thinking security. The first day I got there, I bought the home for 6,000. I bought it from a seller on Facebook Marketplace, and the seller did a quit claim deed where that's how they sell it to you, through quit claim deed. I guess that's pretty common. It's not as ideal as like an insurance deed, I think it's called, but it's very common when they buy at a tax auction. So the seller, okay, so if people own like a rundown property and they stop paying taxes on it and they kind of just abandon it, the city will contact them like, hey, you owe these so much taxes. We're going to give you X amount of time, and then we're taking the property away from you. You're going to lose it. And if they don't comply within a certain time frame, then the city just takes over the property and they list it for sale at an annual auction event, and people can come in and buy it for the price of like $100 plus whatever the back taxes were. So they might get it for $1,500, $2,000, whatever. And then they then list it for sale on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or whatever, or they list it for sale on Zillow or something like that, or Realtor.com, or they get a real estate selling agent to help them list it for them, and then you have to deal with that agent. But if you want to deal directly with the seller and cut out all the agent middlemen, they can just list it on Facebook or whatever themselves, and if you find it, you can just buy it directly from them. The real estate agents take huge commissions. Like, I wanted to do one of these deals, just buy like a $10,000 property, and we had buyer agents reaching out saying, hey, we'll help you find the property. Just give us a non-refundable guaranteed $2,500 fee. That's all. So all I need them to do is literally have, like, meet me somewhere with a key, open up a door, I go in, I say I want it, and then like they're gonna fill out a boilerplate purchase agreement and then send it to the seller, to the selling agent, and I have to pay them $2,500 for like literally 10 minutes of work. It's a ridiculous scam. I want nothing to do with that. Now it makes sense if you're like, I'm gonna buy my dream home. It's gonna be a $250 or $350 or $500,000 home or $1 million home, and I'm so freaked out, and I want to make sure everything's super legally ironclad, and I want like a lawyer looking at this stuff, and it's just, I'm stressed out about it. This is the biggest purchase of my life. Then yeah, of course then. But buying agent making thousands of dollars to like open up some shack in the middle of the ghetto, just open one door for you, ridiculous. So I would not want anything to do with that. It's just like, it felt like a very huge scam to me. So I was very happy not to have anything to do with that. So I just want agentless, so did the seller. The seller is very professional. This seller, okay, so you want to definitely make sure the seller is not a scammer. And the way I did that is I vetted the seller. So I was able to look up the seller's Facebook and see their pictures, get an idea for who this person is. In my case, it was like 50 to 60-year-old white lady that looked kind of like a lawyer. So she was like well put together and stuff. So that was like a good sign for me. And then another thing I did was I was able to match up her name, and I was able to look up the property in the city records and find out it was sold through a tax deed to her. And I was also able to locate her name in the city records online, which she has no control. So I was able to find out directly from the city records. I was able to see all the other purchases that she made. And it turned out she bought, I don't know, like 20, 30, or 40 homes in that ghetto that year through the property auction. So this is something she probably does every year. She buys like 50 homes and flips them all for like $3,000 or $4,000 profit each. So that's a nice lucrative thing, by the way, too. Now she can't sell it with like an insurance deed or whatever. She has to sell it as a quit deed because she doesn't know if the past owners are going to try crawling out of nowhere and try to get back the property somehow through some legal loophole or whatever. So she has to do it by a quit claim deed herself. She doesn't really have a choice because she doesn't have like an ironclad hold on that deed. All she has is the tax deed from the city. Um, and so she then transfers it to me by quit claim deed, where she's not verifying or ensuring that I'll never have issues in the future. But the odds of having issues very small, in my opinion, very, very small for an abandoned property that's fallen apart, that's been abandoned for many years in the ghetto. You know, boarded up, the boards are even falling apart from the boarded up windows. Like old, total trash. Homeless people living in there for decades or whatever. So, because it's so bad, it's not likely people will be trying to claim it in the future. But even in the rare case that could ever happen, or if you were to fix it up and ever want to resell it someday, even though I don't plan to do that, I plan to just rent it. Just in case, the way you can make your claim to the title of that property ironclad is through it's called what's it called? A silent action or something? No. Quiet title action, I think it's called. A quiet title action. So basically, you can hire a lawyer or do this solo, where you basically schedule a court date to appear before a judge, and say like, hey, like this house is trashed. It was obtained through a tax sale. It's been abandoned for years. Can you, like, as a judge, decree that this house is truly mine and it's going to stay that way? Like, anybody else, speak now or forever hold your peace. And the judge is like, yes. Like, this is your house. Nobody else can say anything. I'm putting my name saying that. And the court is deciding that now. And then from that point forward, nobody can challenge your ownership. It's really, really yours at that point. And this lady actually was recommending a couple of lawyers that do that all the time for these types of properties. Usually, she said she sells them as a quit claim deed, and the buyer, with a lawyer, does the quiet title action, I think it's called. And then that usually takes 3 to 6 months to go through and be finalized. And then your title's like ironclad. And once your title's ironclad through that mechanism or through that method legally, then you're able to take out home equity line of credit, or you're able to have somebody buy it with a mortgage to purchase it from you. Otherwise, you would have to sell it on as a quit claim deed once again, even when you go to sell it. And that would be a lot harder to do when the cash amounts are way, way higher. After you've rehabbed it and it's worth $150,000 now, it's no longer like people have that kind of cash laying around. And so at that point, you would really want a mortgage company is most likely involved, and they'll only do it if the title's ironclad. And so at that point, you would have needed to have gotten that done. So that's something I plan to do. She said it only costs about $800 to get that quiet title action done by a lawyer. But you can do it solo too. I was looking up on ChatGPT, can you do it solo? I said yes, and then there's a whole bunch of videos on YouTube about how to do that solo. You say that in your district, you don't need a judge ruling, you just need to own the taxes for a year, and if the owner doesn't pay you back, you own the property. I don't know if that's like just traditional where you live. It could be different case by case. Basically, what you're saying probably is how it would work. Like, if anybody tried to say, like, hey, I own the property, like 10 years later, if you brought them to court, the court would rule in your favor. Like, the court even ruled in like one guy's favor for this. He was a homeless guy. He moved into an abandoned property. He fixed it up himself. He never bought it or anything. He just literally moved into a boarded up home. He fixed it up privately, and he got utilities turned on in his name. He lived there for some years. Turned out, like 5 years later, a bank showed up. Hey, what are you doing here? This is our property. They went to court. The judge ruled in the homeless guy's favor. He got to keep the house. The bank was just poop out of luck. So in that case, the bank just dropped the ball, didn't get on top of things and catch this guy squatting, and the squatter took over the property just by being there long enough and fixing it up to a certain degree. The judge just ruled in his favor. So how much more if I actually got it from somebody that bought it from a tax auction from the city? That's more on the up and up. And then they sold it to me. It was filed with the city through a quit claim deed. I obtained it, and now I fixed it up from nothing to something. I have evidence of that, and then I'm like renting it out. I'm owning it for years, and then somebody comes along and says, "Hey, that's my property," and it's like worth 40 times what it was the way they left it. That would be like really messed up for them to swoop in out of nowhere and want like the golden goose that I made golden out of nothing. So, anyways, but the quiet title action though is necessary for you to be able to get a mortgage on it or to take a loan off it. Like mortgage companies really want to see an ironclad title where there's never any risk of somebody else um, claiming ownership somehow. So quitclaim deeds are not as safe and ironclad as other types of deeds. Like I think it's called a security deed or whatever it is. I have it all in my notes. I just can't remember everything. But there's like a warranty deed. I think it's called. Warranty deeds are more ironclad. Okay, so okay, so that's kind of how the legal process worked, and it was pretty cool because this person they buy tax sale auction properties so often and sell them so often that they just had a really streamlined process with me. They're very professional, and pretty much I just had to sign a DocuSign document they sent me, which was a purchase agreement, and I had to digitally sign it. And then once I did that, um, then I had to pay her, and I just used Chase Quick Pay, and then and it was limited, like there's a daily limit on my Chase Quick Pay for a stranger like this, so I'd use two different checking accounts I own, one for my business, one for my personal checking, and send the daily limit every day until eventually I paid her the 6,000. So that's how I did it. Maybe next time it'd be a little bit easier to like use another electronic means, but that's just the way I chose to do it. Um, so I'm just telling you guys like what was actually involved. It was pretty simple, and it would have been a lot more complicated to even use real estate agents because then you're like going bickering back and forth over terms and signing agreements with your agent and with them and sending offers and having counter offers and back and forth negotiations. It's just way more. Also, another thing is, okay, so I saw the property. This is something I was able to drive to myself, and I explored it um, before I purchased it. But because I didn't have a buying agent and they didn't have a selling agent, but even if they did, let me just say, I explored multiple properties with my own eyes on site without permission after seeing the listing online. Now, you guys might be like, no, you should just wait for an agent, blah, blah, blah. I tried that way, and I was trying to represent. You're able to self-represent with no buying agent to cut costs, and I don't want to pay $2,500 to somebody if I'm buying a $6,000 property. That's ridiculous. To give them 50% of your total purchase as their fee, it's stupid. I'm not doing that, especially when the total cost I'm looking to put into the rehab is $3,000 or $4,000. I'm gonna give $3,000 to some stranger to give me a key to unlock a door to look around. A non-existent door, by the way, because most of these properties don't even have doors or keys. Like, what is their key for? There are no doors. It's plywood. In order to look inside the property, you're going to have to, like, a lot of times, look through windows and stuff. Like, there is no way to unlock a door if the entire property is boarded up. So, anyways, That's how I did it. These properties that are abandoned for 10 or 20 years or 30 years, um, people regularly live in them. Homeless people live in them. You'll find alcohol bottles all over the floor. Um, they're pretty much like public libraries. They're like a park. They're like a trashy, littered park. They're like a public utility at that point. It's not like you're going into your neighbor's yard, jumping his fence, and his dog's barking at you, and he's like, "What are you doing in my backyard? Get out of my garden! Stay away from my watermelons." It's not like that. This is literally like you walk through a jungle because the yard hasn't been mowed for 20 years. You hack your way through that, and then you look through boarded up windows. Your biggest concern is maybe some homeless guy is going to be like naked, covered in like used needles or something. I don't know. Or you might find a dead body in there. Who knows? But so basically, there's not, in my opinion, like abandoned properties. I think it's perfectly fine to go look because you're going to be the one that's got to live with that purchase, and to buy sight unseen is pretty risky in my opinion because like one property I looked at, it was $10,000 and it looked like pretty much finished. It looked like whoever's rehabbing it just kind of gave up, and it looked pretty good. It was like a lot of the work had already been started, all of the demolition. Everything was down to studs, so you'd just be able to start right away with the plumbing, electrical, and then start working on the drywall and stuff. So I was like, wow, this thing's well on its way. Well, just to be safe, I went and looked at the property on my own, and it turned out the entire side of the house was gone. It was missing. There had been a major fire, and just one half of the house existed. The other half was missing. It was literally vaporized, literally gone. And a little miniature rainforest had started on that side of the property, growing out of the ashes. There were little trees and stuff growing up. And I was wondering, how is this property not even falling down? How is it standing? All of their photos took pictures of the side that had no fire damage. They cleverly cropped out all of their pictures to not show any fire damage. So this person was trying to get a sight unseen buyer to purchase it and completely hide the fact that half the property was missing from a fire. So that's a risk of sight unseen. Like, I was like, wow, what a lesson. So people are, I told that guy, like, God's going to punish him. He needs to be more honest, and he needs to divulge that this property was like badly burned and show pictures of the fire damage part and the good part. So anyways, and the people that own it, in my opinion, typically probably bought a ton of properties in the area. They're just getting rid of one that was a problem area, a problem property for them, or one that they just bought to flip at a tax auction or whatever. They never had an intention to remodel it themselves anyways. So these people are multiple holdings people. They might even live out of state, and they may have never stepped foot on that property themselves. So the notion that you have to get like a buying agent to contact them to get a key to unlock it for you, that's like if you're buying actually a nice property in a nice area or whatever. That does not apply to abandoned homes that are in the 10,000 under type of numbers or 15,000 under. I think that's complete overkill. But if it's like decent home that's like not abandoned and boarded up and actually has a working door with a lock, then yeah, maybe you would want to get a key. But in my opinion, even then, I would probably just walk around, look in the windows, like get an idea, and then just avoid the hassle of trying to coordinate going there with somebody, because that way you can go on your own time, just whenever. And for me, that might be like at 2 in the morning or whatever. So I just like to do things at night a lot of times because I'm more of a night owl. But anyways, just whatever time I could just go and look. That's what I prefer. Just bring my flashlight like this and just walk around. So that way I can kind of estimate what I think it will take to fix it up. Okay, so $6,000 property, $4,000 in total cost to rehab it, and equity would be like $150,000, and then I rent it out for $2,600 a month. and that's like 30,000 a year cash flow, pure profit. Like, I'm not paying anything for it except property taxes of like $300 a year. Although I imagine when it's reassessed by the city eventually, they would notice like, whoa, this thing's like nice now. Then it might triple or whatever to a more appropriate property tax. But at least initially, it's still grandfathered into the property tax of being an abandoned 30-year abandoned property.